Once again, thanks everybody for being here. Our Pugs in the Park, Adventures in Learning, and thanks again. Jim, Havoc, appreciate it. Again, we got a couple of more presentations, and as you can probably smell, we're going to have some delicious lunch here a little bit later on as soon as we wrap things up. So we've got some brats on the grill and all the extras coming up too. But at this time, we want to continue here, and we're glad to have with us from the Goodhue County Humane Society to tell us about their pet adoption opportunities and so on. Would you please welcome Anna Ostendorf. Anna.
Oh, I gotcha.
Big time.
Okay. I'm just going to set these here. All right. Thank you guys for having me. Oh, we're stuck. So my name is Anna Ostendorf, and this is Buddy. And we are from the Humane Society of Goodhue County. Buddy is up for adoption there right now. So I'll tell you a little bit about our organization. And then if you have any questions, please feel free. So we are a nonprofit animal shelter. We are located in Red Wing, and we are the animal control for all of Goodhue County and most of Pierce County as well. So that means that any lost stray animal, pet that's found within Goodhue County and Pierce County will come to our shelter. So when an animal comes in, we hold it for 5 days to hopefully their owner comes back and we can return them to their owner. If no owner is found, then they end up staying with us at the shelter. We also take in animals that are owned that people can't keep anymore and are surrendered to the shelter, which was Buddy's case. Although our priority are those strays that don't have a home. So we only take in those surrendered animals when we have space available. So those animals that come in after their hold time, or if they're surrendered after they're processed in, we do what we need to do to get them available for adoption. So all of the animals that are up for adoption with us are spayed or neutered and have all their vaccinations, and then we've addressed any obvious medical concerns or behavioral issues. Not all of our dogs are as well behaved as Buddy. Most of the dogs that we get in at the shelter have not had very much training, and a lot of times we get the ones that are kind of the awkward teenager stage of dogs, where they're about 9 months to 2 years old, where the cute puppy stage is over, but they still act like a puppy. They haven't calmed down yet. So at the Humane Society, at any given moment, we have dogs and cats available for adoption, as well as other animals, guinea pigs, hamsters, ferrets, lizards, birds, all sorts of animals. Right now, all we have are dogs and cats, but it changes on a day-to-day basis. We never know what's going to come in and how long animals are going to stay when they're there. We welcome volunteers of all ages to come down to the Humane Society and walk dogs, socialize with our cats. We have a room that people can go in with an animal to play with it. So that's a good opportunity where if you are not able to have a pet of your own at this point, to come visit them and still kind of get that benefit of spending some time with them. And of course, the animals love it too. And then, of course, we do have the animals up for adoption. So if it is an appropriate time for you to have a pet of your own, we'd be more than happy to help place one with you. So, do you guys have any questions for me or about Buddy? Yeah?
Why does he eat?
Why is he licking himself? Because he's a dog, and that's just what they do. Yeah. Our dog adoption fees range from about $100 to $400. And we base it off of their age, their breed, basically kind of the more desirable an animal is, unfortunately, the more desirable they are, the more expensive their adoption fee will be. But that means that that kind of paves the way for the ones who are going to need a lot of extra care, need extra surgeries or medical treatment or things like that and then they're going to be a not so highly adoptable pet. Our cat adoption fee is $100 for an adult cat and $150 for a kitten. And then again, that includes having them spayed or neutered, having all their vaccinations, their microchip, all of that stuff being up to date. Yeah.
How long has Buddy been with you?
Buddy has been at the shelter. Oh, where did I put your paper? Buddy has been with us since May. So he is looking for a home right now. He is about 9 years old, and he's a pretty mellow guy. He had one family and then was given up to another family who then said they didn't have enough time for him. So sometimes the reasons that animals come to us are unclear, but he's a great dog, and hopefully we'll find a home pretty soon. Good boy. Any other questions? Yeah? What does he eat? He eats dog food. Yep. And at the Humane Society, of course, we provide the food, water, bedding, and the kennel space for the dogs. And the majority of our funding comes from individual donations. Our food, we get a lot of that donated from local businesses, which is great. So he's on a mix of some pretty good dog foods that he likes. Huh. Yeah. We do quite a few adoptions. We average about one adoption a day. Ideally, we would do probably about half again as many as that, especially right now when we have a ton of cats. So if anybody needs a cat, if you know anybody who needs a cat, send them my way. But yeah, we do about one adoption a day average, somewhere in there. And the animals will stay at the shelter for, some of them are up for adoption for a day and they get adopted right away. Others will stay at our shelter for 8 or 9 months. That's the longest that we usually end up having them. And every once in a while, it seems like we have one that will hang out with us for quite a while until it finds that right home. But once they're up for adoption at the shelter, we keep them until they are adopted. If they have a special need or for whatever reason they haven't been adopted and they've been there a really long time, we try to work with some other groups. So like Paws and Claws in Rochester and us will sometimes trade dogs. So I'll say, hey, I've had this dog here for like 6 months, nobody's paid any attention to it, and they'll trade me one that they haven't had any attention on. And then sometimes those dogs get adopted right away. It's just that they're kind of see a different audience and find a home that way. Yeah. For boarding or for to surrender one? Generally, we charge $50 for someone to surrender their animal to us. Most of the time, those animals that are coming into us have not been kept current on their vaccinations and things like that. So that kind of helps us get those initial things done. Every animal that comes in, we do blood work on them to, rule out some of the major illnesses that dogs and cats can carry, especially if they haven't been kept current on their vaccinations, or like heartworm, things like that. So we always want to screen the animals to make sure that they're current for all of those things. Yeah.
Where are you located?
We are located in Red Wing. So if you know where the Perkins restaurant is in Red Wing, we're kind of in that light industrial area down the hill in behind there. Oh my goodness. You're so sneezy today. Yeah.
Do you put chips in all of your dogs when they come in?
Not necessarily when they come in, but before they go back out. We put microchips. The question was about microchips. We microchip all of the dogs and cats that leave our shelter. And as someone who deals with the strays or lost animals coming in, I can tell you that microchips are crucial. It's the best way to guarantee that your pet will come back to you if they're ever lost. And plenty of people who have a cat that has never left their house in, 12 years, all of a sudden sneaks out the door one day. Or a fence is left open and the dog scooches off, or it sees a squirrel across the street. And dogs who have always been perfectly well behaved and never left their yard will suddenly find themselves, off missing. So the microchip is about the size of a grain of rice, and it's implanted between their shoulder blades. And so it's a permanent identification. It, is a very quick, relatively painless procedure to put that in. And then we have scanners Most animal control, veterinary clinics, and even some police officers have those scanners that they can run over the animal, and then an ID number pops up, and then we can get the information for who the animal belongs to. So especially with cats, where it can be kind of difficult to identify a cat when so many look really similar, that microchip is really important to help us identify who they are and who they belong to. Yeah.
Does the microchip kind of make it so then, like, if that person doesn't want to have a collar on their pet, does that kind of make it like that?
Sort of. Collars are still important because if you don't have a microchip scanner in your pocket and a dog shows up to you, you can look at its tag and say, oh, okay, here's a phone number I can call, and call that phone number. So having a tag is still a good idea, and having a collar, and in a lot of places it is required by the city ordinances that your dog, especially, not always cats, but that the dogs wear a collar that has identification tags on there. But, you know, tags fall off, collars slip off. You give your dog a bath and take its collar off, and then that's the afternoon, of course, that it decides to sneak out of the fence. So that microchip can't be lost, and it's the best way for us to be able to identify them. Any other questions? Yeah. Well, it depends on where you go, the cost of the microchip. At the Humane Society, we do microchips for $30, and that includes that registration. We're able to do it at that price because we get them for a lower price as a nonprofit. If you go to a vet clinic, it's usually going to be in the $40 to $50 range, in part because they don't get as good of deals as we do, but also then you're going to pay for the office call usually too. And we're open 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. 7 days a week. So you can always come down to the shelter, visit the animals. Like I said, take them in that socialization room to play, take them out in the yard, or if you have your own pet that needs a microchip, needs its nails trimmed, things like that, we can always help with things like that too. And we have a boarding facility and a groomer. So that helps bring in income for the shelter to pay for the homeless animals. And then also it's a service that is kind of nice for people to take advantage of. Yeah. Legally, our maximum capacity is 50 dogs and 50 cats. Realistically, in the summer, we are right at that 50 cats, sometimes over, and we have to get exceptions made for us by the Board of Animal Health. For dogs, realistically, we can't house 50 dogs unless they're all litters of puppies or small dogs that can be housed together. We have 20 kennels for our dogs. So, you know, usually we don't exceed 20 dogs. We rarely house dogs together unless, like I said, it's a litter of puppies or small dogs that came from the same household or that just happen to get along really, really well. But then our capacity for the small animals is somewhat endless, depending on the small animal. We took in last year 38 rats, pet rats that were surrendered. They all got adopted and other rescues took them. We've had, I think, 10 birds at a time. We've had everything from little parakeets and lovebirds to scarlet macaws and cockatoos. We've had small lizards and large lizards, iguanas. We've had all sorts of animals. We even had a stray iguana come in. The police were called to pick up an iguana that showed up in somebody's yard in Red Wing, and we ended up with that one. And we've had stray birds too, like stray cockatiels. One actually flew into the correctional facility in Red Wing. Yeah.
Is it hard to find homes for such things as an iguana?
She asked if it was hard to find a home for an iguana. Sometimes, but there are people who have the passion for kind of the unusual pets. So they all do end up finding homes eventually. Some take a little bit longer, or some have some special quirks and special needs. One of the iguanas, we work with the Rescue Iguana Care Association and the Minnesota Herpetological Society. So occasionally when we get a special type of animal that maybe needs a little more rehabilitation or, has some extra special needs. We work with other organizations to take those if they're not the kind that could just readily be adopted into a home. And we do that for that matter with like dogs too. If there's one that really has some special needs that needs extra care more than we can provide, we'll work with other groups. Yeah. That question is, how large of a staff do we have? Right now, we only have 2 full-time staff members, and then we've got, I think, the full-time equivalent is like 4.5. We have several other part-time staff members, including 2 veterinary technicians, so that we can do a lot of the testing on site. But mostly it's a lot of part-time people who, and then, volunteers who come in to help out. Yeah.
Is there someone who stays there, like,
All the time?
yeah, to watch the dogs, like, at night after closing time?
The question is if we have someone who stays there overnight to watch the dogs. And the answer is not usually, but occasionally. We had, kind of fitting with the pugs who are here in a way, we had a puggle, so a pug beagle, and she came into us pregnant, and the dad was a German Shepherd. So we were a little concerned that those puppies might be a little too big. And we had x-rays done, made sure that they were going to be okay. But then when she was getting close to the time that she was having the puppies, we stayed, and people would check in regularly with her. And then the night that she ended up having them, of course she had them at night, we kind of camped out and stayed at the shelter till about 4 in the morning to make sure that all those puppies came out okay. Yeah.
Were they really cute puppies?
They were really cute puppies. They were really odd-looking puppies. Some of them kind of look like a pug beagle mix, but with really long legs. When you have mixed breed dogs, sometimes they end up with all kinds of weird features. You never know what you're going to end up with. And a lot of the dogs that we get at the shelter, we don't necessarily know. They can't talk. They can't tell us, how old they are, what their mom looked like, those kinds of things. So we have to make a lot of guesses. With Buddy, the people who had him were fairly certain that his mom was an Australian Shepherd, but I don't think they even knew what his dad was. So it's kind of our best guess. And when we don't have a previous owner, we have to tell how old they are by their teeth and determine their breed based on a variety of characteristics, how their nose is set, how long their legs are in proportion to their body, their coat, all sorts of different things. So it's kind of a guessing game, it's kind of fun sometimes, but it's a little difficult occasionally when people want to know what kind of dog it is, and the answer is, I don't know. Any other questions? All right. Thank you guys, and feel free to come visit us anytime.
All right, yeah, let's hear it. Anna Ostendorf from the Goodhue County Humane Society. So she has information. So if you're interested, she'll get that to you.